Father Vogel again. We continue our series on St. JeanBaptiste de La Salle's Meditations in Time of Retreat, especially for teachers. So we, in the last video, began looking at some background to these meditations. And what we are going to look at in this one is kind of the beginnings of St. JeanBaptiste de La Salle's life. We're going to look at his early life first, and then we'll get into his formation of the Christian schools. So, JeanBaptiste was born in Reims, France, in 1651. He was born into a large eventually a large family. He is the oldest of 11 siblings. Very much kind of influential and well-to-do family were the La Salles, and but also very pious and devout family as well. JeanBaptiste himself had a very pious demeanor, and he was very studious and quiet. So, a student that I'm sure his teachers enjoyed, or any of our teachers would enjoy studiousness of La Salle. And for the first 4 years of his education, as I'd mentioned in the last video, he himself was tutored one-on-one at his home. And then after that, he did attend a school associated with the university at Reims. I mentioned that was kind of a grammar school that was available as well. So at the age of 11, JeanBaptiste receives what's called tonsure. And so tonsure is the first step in formation to become a priest. So from a pretty young age, he felt this call to be a priest. And so he receives tonsure, and technically one becomes a cleric then at that point when one receives tonsure. So he's going to study there, and then at the age 16, based off of some family connections, he was able to be named a canon at the Reims Cathedral. And so a canon, the canonry, is a group of community of different clerics, many priests, but then also like JeanBaptiste, who at this time is studying to be a priest, but is not yet one. He is able to have this position that has certain benefits and a stipend, and it was a pretty good position to become a canon at a cathedral. He had certain duties and responsibilities as part of it, but it really sets him up for some further advancement in the church. So he is beginning to study to be a priest, and he's going to go off into the seminary, and he goes to a seminary, Salle in Paris, France. And so being able to go off, the seminary system had just kind of taken off within the church prior to this period, after the Council of Trent and everything. So education, even for priests, was just beginning to develop in a better way. And so JeanBaptiste was going to receive the benefits of this kind of an education that beforehand priests didn't necessarily have. So his formation, the life of prayer, and that he was formed in at Salle, really influenced his later formation of his brothers for teaching at the schools themselves. And so we will see that influence is kind of behind what we see in the meditations in time of retreat. Unfortunately, tragedy strikes while he's there in the seminary. Both his mother and his father, they end up passing away when he's at the age of 21, and he's kind of left in charge of some of his family members. His siblings kind of get spread out to different for family members to take care of them, but he's kind of in charge of three of his brothers, whose younger brothers, who are 13, 8, and 6 years old. And so here's a young man, he's in the seminary, he's trying to focus on studying to become a priest, and he's also caring for his siblings as well. He's finally, he goes through this time of study and taking care of his family affairs as well, and as the oldest. And finally, at age 27, he is ordained. And of course, his first years of the priesthood are filled with priestly duties as well, especially as a canon still at Rheims Cathedral. And finally, this is kind of the time that draws him into education of the youth, because he had a spiritual director who also during this time ends up passing away. And one of the projects that his spiritual director had was the formation of a religious women's order, and their main focus was education of girls. And so he kind of had to take over for his spiritual director and forming that. So he kind of got drawn in. He never really intended necessarily to get into education, but providentially this is what God kind of led him to do. And so it's going to be from this context that we're going to see him really be drawn into education in a greater way. And so I'll pause this video here, and we'll pick up his story in the next one. God bless.